There used to be a time when basic, standard leagues ruled fantasy football. Back then, the most exotic variation you saw was tight ends being eligible in the flex position. Now, things are much more varied, with 2 QB and Superflex leagues gaining in popularity and PPR becoming the default on many sites. If you add them together, you get a whole different feel than your standard, single, quarterback redraft leagues. It's quite likely your yearly fantasy group is tempted to try this type of league in 2021 if they haven't already. Before you make the switch, it's important to pay attention to the variance in rankings between these formats and single QB setups. Superflex leagues force you to pay closer attention to all QBs, not just the top 15 or so. Plenty of owners in single QB leagues don't even bother drafting a backup, figuring they can just stream someone off the waiver wire when their starter is on bye. Good luck finding a starting quarterback on waivers in Superflex and 2 QB leagues. Dominate your draft. Ultimate 2021 cheat sheet. Assuming everyone in your league starts 2 quarterbacks and drafts at least 1 backup, only 2 Week 1 starting QBs won't be drafted. In all likelihood, though, those 2 QBs would be on rosters, too. In 12-person or deeper leagues, not every team will even possess a backup quarterback behind their 2 starters. 2021 PPR Fantasy Rankings: Quarterback, Running Back, Wide Receiver, Tight End, D/ST, Kicker. Top 200. Even a lot of Week 1 backup QBs will be drafted in Superflex leagues. Trey Lance, Mac Jones, Taysom Hill. If they have a realistic chance to start at some point relatively early in the season, they have value. That's why, unlike single QB leagues, quarterbacks go early and dominate the top half of our rankings below. It can be a weird adjustment to change your way of thinking about the quarterback position, but it's just something you have to prepare for. You don't have to completely sell out for the position. Elite RBs, WRs, and Ts still have a ton of value, especially since you can still play those positions in your Superflex spot if you want. But you might be surprised just how fast QBs come off the board if it's your first Superflex draft. 2021 Standard Fantasy Rankings: Quarterback, Running Back, Wide Receiver, Tight End, D/ST, Kicker. Outside of the obvious differences between standard and PPR Superflex leagues, the quarterback position is just a tad more valuable in standard. This is simply because other positions produce more fantasy points in PPR leagues while the quarterback position is unaffected across the 2 formats. Just to point out one example, Kirk Cousins ranked 11th overall in fantasy last year in standard formats, and ahead of any other non-QB. But in PPR leagues, he finished 17th overall, behind Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, and others. Cousins is much more valuable in Superflex leagues compared to single QB leagues regardless, but the PPR format allowed a few running backs and wide receivers to leapfrog him in total fantasy points. 2021 Fantasy Auction Values: Standard PPR, Quarterback, Running Back, Wide Receiver, Tight End, D/ST, Kicker. Overall, put simply, virtually all quarterbacks have higher ceilings and noticeably higher floors every week than any airbay, WR, or T you would be considering for your Superflex spot. Occasionally you'll have 3 awesome airbay matchups and want to play them all, which you always have the option to do. But you still want to arm yourself with enough worthwhile QBs to have in your lineup most weeks. 2021 Fantasy Sleepers: Quarterback, Running Back, Wide Receiver, Tight End, D/ST. Each team will continue to make changes to these rankings until Week 1, so check back for updates. 2021 Fantasy Tiers Draft Strategy: Quarterback, Running Back, Wide Receiver, Tight End, D/ST. Rankings based on full point PPR, 4-point passing TD scoring.